The Indianapolis Colts have been quite active in the first few days of free agency. Who knew? It has been one crazy week, and we're just getting started. So let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, Chrome Dome and all, as if you've seen the last episode. And I'm joined here by my fellow writer and co host of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, the Colts have been quite busy this week, and I know a lot of fans didn't think they were going to be just because how Ballard was, but the Colts have been making moves. We've seen signings, re-signings, releases, and even a trade in there. So how you doing, buddy? What have you thought so far of the first week of free agency for the Colts?
Well, you've had some shocking moves. You've had some shocking moves. You've had some shocking non-moves. You've had some really good additions. I think that it's just been so much more active than I can really remember seeing since Chris Ballard has been the GM. Honestly, it's the activity of a guy who might have his job a little bit on the line, but hey, you know what? It also he's legitimately filling some much needed spots too.
Yeah, and I think he said after the season that when you go 4-12-1, the roster needs to be evaluated, and the Colts are definitely releasing some guys, trading some guys away, and really addressing some needs. And while I know that there's a lot of people that want other needs addressed, we got to remember we're technically only in the second day of free agency starting today. So yeah, I think a lot more moves are going to be made. But man, we've already got a lot of people in the chat. We got Quentin talking about Gardner Minshew. Taryn is on time. Good to see you, buddy. Stats Matt, as always. Mustache Mania ran wild on the AFC. Let's see. Steve is here. Sarah, as always, is pumped. David is back. You guys, he's saying with Minshew's mustache, we got to be at least 7 wins.
Yes.
Gonna be wild. But hey, before we dive into all this news, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight, so buckle in. It's probably gonna be a longer episode, but if you haven't done so already, the reason I've got this bald head is because we got to 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook and follow Horseshoe Huddle at Colts on FN on Twitter. You will not be disappointed because we are pumping out content at an alarming rate right now. So you're getting all of your fill of Colts news. But before we dive in, listen, guys, I held up my end of the bargain. It's now time for Drake to hold up his end of the bargain. So he was supposed to do a TikTok dance, and we've got a little surprise for you tonight before we dive into the news. So go ahead and enjoy this one. You got some moves, buddy. You got some moves. Hey, great job, man. Great job. That was exceptional. Are you normally a dancer like that?
No, it's just I feel like I have natural rhythm. I like drumming. I like literally have a drum kit. But that was in honor of my 7th favorite restaurant, Applebee's. So
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. That was awesome, man. Nick says, if I were you, Drake, I'd delete that and Men in Black delete chat's memory. Hey, that was awesome, man. That was awesome. Nico loves it. The moves. Taryn, I expect to see you bust this out in the club this weekend. Good stuff. So, hey, everybody. Like I said, we've got a lot to talk about. So we're gonna dive in right away. And if you want to go ahead and just replay those moves by Drake, just go ahead and hit rewind there. But we're going to start out with the trade. The Colts traded cornerback Stefan Gilmore to the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. Big trade. I don't think I was expecting it, but it does make sense in my opinion. The Colts received a 2023 5th-round pick for Stefan Gilmore, and it clears nearly $10 million in cap space. So Drake, what were your thoughts on the trade? How do you think it went? And what do you think of the compensation that the Colts received back for Stefan Gilmore?
Well, it's all on his age. It's not on his performance per se, but it's the fact that he's 33 years old, and that is such a historically bad age for defensive backs. It just seems like that's when the cliff is approaching. You just don't know when it's going to happen for him. And so I think that the Cowboys are like, hey, or the Colts were like, hey, we're trying to clear 10 million. The Cowboys were like, hey, there's just one additional missing veteran piece we need for that defense. And it's Gilmore. And the Colts were like, okay, perfect. So I think a about a fifth round pick is probably what they should have expected out of that. But it's the cap space, I think, that they were like, all right, let's get ahead of this while we can.
Yeah, and I think Chad says it right on. The compensation sucks, but at his age, you can't expect much more. Listen, guys, I saw a lot of Colts fans pretty upset that the Colts only received a fifth round pick back for this. But you got to think, Stefan Gilmore is 33 years old. I do understand he had a great season last year, but at the same time, for a 33-year-old corner, like Drake said, they could fall off a cliff at any moment. And you got to think about Jalen Ramsey, who's 28, 29 years old, somewhere around there. One of the best cornerbacks in the game was just traded for a third round pick. So you can't really expect to get much more for Stefan Gilmore, who's 5 years older than that. And I don't think I think this was about clearing some cap space, but I also think Stefan Gilmore wanted to go to a contender. So when that happens, you're just trying to get what you can out of this. You don't want to really hold things up so that way Gilly can't go to a contender. The Colts wanted to do right by him because, again, it's kind of like the Matt Ryan situation. Gilmore came to this team expected to compete for a Super Bowl last year. They didn't do that. And that's what he wants. He wants to go compete for a Super Bowl in the final years of his career. So I don't have a problem with it, honestly. Wyatt Loss says 176 from Dallas is essentially a 6, but that's fine. Chad saying Bowder and Irsay looking towards the future with that move. I 100% agree with that. So I don't think it's a move that necessarily needs to be criticized that much because, again, you're looking towards the future. You want to send Stefan Gilmore to somewhere where he can be happy and chase a ring. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. I do think, though, what this does, the Colts are very thin at the cornerback position. And I know you wrote a piece about it, Drake. What do you think the Colts' next moves will be as far as addressing the cornerback position?
It's good. It's really interesting because that's not cheap for a corner, 10 million. But that's also not the highest end money that you can make, obviously, at the position. So I do still think they're going to go get somebody out of free agency. Somehow they're going to pull a depth piece more than likely, but you're going to see, I think, two cornerbacks taken in the draft. That's what I think you're going to see. But that veteran has got to be signed. They got to get somebody in there right now because I think it's down to essentially 6 guys, and people might hear that and go, "Oh, okay," but no, like literally 2 of them are guys that will probably play. In fact, one is a guarantee in Isaiah Rogers Sr., but I think the other one's Dallas Flowers, and he's just so raw right now. So they definitely need to sign someone too.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they're done in free agency at cornerback. And there's still the possibility that Kenny Moore is not on this team next year
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
Isaiah Rogers, I think you can probably pretty much mark down as a starter, but Chris Ballard always loves to make a move at cornerback in free agency. We've seen it with Xavier Rhodes, Stefan Gilmore. We've seen it multiple times. Brandon Faison last year, and then there have been others. But I think yeah, you can probably expect them to go get one in free agency and then in the draft, and it could be as high as the second round. We know the Colts have been very interested in Keely Ringo. They met with him at the Combine. He's a cornerback out of Georgia, and they met with him yesterday before the Georgia Pro Day. So that's just a name to keep in mind. Rock Ya-Sin, as Stats Matt said, very well. Maybe it is a reunion on the way. I don't know how much faith I would put in that, but hey, never say never with this Colts team. But anyways, to wrap it up, wish Gilly well. Hopefully he goes in and has a successful stint with the Cowboys. But let's move it along to the next big name that will not be on the Colts next year, Matt Ryan. And we knew this was coming, Drake. Tell me about what your thoughts were on this. We've kind of talked about this ad nauseum, so I don't think we'll spend too much time on it. But I think we both can agree that it was pretty sad tenure for Matt Ryan in Indianapolis.
To for him to only win 4 games, I really do think there's some football left in the guy. I really do. I just don't think that. I think this team hit a massive cliff as he put the pen to paper, and I don't think that it was good timing. I think everything just kind of went to chaos quickly. But it clears up $17 million in cap space. It was going to happen 100%. So I do think he still has, a chance to maybe start for a team that's ready to win now, or, definitely back up in the NFL.
Right. And before I kind of talk about Matt Ryan, I like this by Landon.
Mm,
Does Blackman move to cornerback permanently? I'm actually writing a piece on that will probably come out, I would say, early next week, maybe Monday morning, about the possibility of Julian Blackman moving to cornerback. Because if you remember, to end last season, Julian Blackman was the Colts slot corner when Kenny Moore went down with injury. So it's definitely a possibility. I'll dig into more of that in my piece. So make sure you go ahead and read that on Monday. But yeah, we knew this was coming. The Colts weren't going to keep Matt Ryan on the roster at $35 million to be a backup quarterback or a mentor to their rookie quarterback. This saves the Colts $17 million in cap space. Yes, it is a $18 million cap hit, but they still gain 17 million in cap space that they can use on other free agents and to try to build up this defensive line like they have been. They still should probably go. They'll probably address the offensive line before things are said and done. Wide receiver is certainly a need. So you need that 17 million in cap space. You can't just keep Matt Ryan hanging around when he showed at the end of the year that he was done. And whether Matt Ryan retires or if he goes and signs somewhere else, I'm not really sure. But I think we saw last year that Matt Ryan, ultimate professional, he handled everything with pure class last year. But I think his time in the NFL is done.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that there has to be a one stop shop in Indianapolis where you had only 4 out of 17 possible games go your way, and a couple of them you had to battle back and win them in the closing seconds. So, best of luck to Matt if he decides to go into broadcasting as he has expressed interest in. Best of luck to him, or if he goes and chases a ring, let's hope that he can get one eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just have to see what happens. But the Colts did make a move at the quarterback position, and I think a lot of Colts fans are happy about this. Drake, the Colts signed former Eagles quarterback Gardner Minshew. So I think there was a lot of people were talking about a certain media member in the Indianapolis area who was possibly on this, but I'm going to give a shout out to us because we've been on this for weeks. Drake and I have been talking about Gardner Minshew to Indianapolis for a couple weeks now. It seemed like a logical fit, and it really was probably the top of my list as far as who would I consider the best possibilities to be a veteran backup quarterback or even a bridge quarterback if the rookie isn't ready from week one. So let me go over the numbers real quick. It's a 1 year, $3.5 million deal, but it can be worth up to $5.5 million with incentives that as according to Ian Rappaport, seem like they're very easy to reach. But Drake, give me your thoughts on Gardner Minshew as a Colt. It looks like Minshew Mania is going to be in Indianapolis this year.
That's huge. And as you said, we've been talking about this ever since Steichen was, reportedly hired. So this is something that is it's a great signing. You're getting, regardless. Here's the thing: everyone's like, "Oh, well, if you get a veteran quarterback who's higher end for a backup, it's got to be Richardson, it's got to be Levis." Oh no, I mean, literally any one of these 4 guys could use Gardner Minshew as a backup quarterback. So I do think that he will have greater value with a guy like Levis, with a guy like Richardson, because they're probably going to sit and watch him for a little while. And he's going to teach them even more than potentially Young or Stroud, since they're more pro ready. But this is a slam dunk signing. And if, worst comes to worst, knock on wood, obviously, you have arguably the best backup quarterback available. I mean, this is a guy who fits with Steichen as well, and he's had really bad teams around him in his career. People don't look at his win-loss record and hold it against him too much. He's had to carry teams when he might not be that number 1 pick type. So good signing, though.
Yeah, I love it. Stats Matt says Colts promo department better start getting wearable mustaches assembled. So yeah, I think the contract honestly shows that it could go both ways, in my opinion. I think that the Colts gave him that low end backup quarterback. I wouldn't say low end backup, probably mid-tier backup quarterback money. But then if he does play, it can be high-end backup quarterback money. So I don't necessarily think this shows any indictment on the type of quarterback that they are targeting. As Chris Ballard has said, the paint doesn't dry, or the cement isn't dry until a draft day. So
That's right.
I think still all four quarterbacks are on the table, depending how things shape up in April. I certainly don't think that it's like, well, no matter who we're drafting, it's going to be out there week one. You got to see. I could see Minshew starting week one over any four of these quarterbacks if they're not ready, or any four of them could start on week one. I think there's an argument for that. So we'll have to see. But I do love Minshew in Indianapolis. He knows Shane Steichen's offense. He has been a capable backup for Jalen Hurts for the past 2 years, and he has 2 years of starting experience down there in Jacksonville. So, and I think one of the most important things, something you need to have as a backup quarterback, great locker room guy. You never hear a single bad word from any former teammates of Gardner Minshew. I think he is going to fit in great in the Indianapolis culture. The fans are going to love him. Teammates are certainly going to love him. I think this is an absolute win all around.
Well, and two quick things. Number one, I might have to add a Minshew jersey to my collection. Like seriously, I'm so freaking excited for this signing. But something else that he can do is he can actually get out of the pocket. Okay, the guy actually has some mobility. He's got some legs to get out of pressure, which I'm sure that Colts fans are missing. They had a little bit of it with Ellinger, but we're talking about a much higher end, more experience has started for a bad team. So great signing, good for Steichen too.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think either way, whether he is a bridge, whether he is just a veteran backup, I think it's a very good signing by the Colts. So, but let's move it along to a guy that I think will absolutely be a starter next year, as the Colts side former 49ers defensive end Samson Ebukam. 49er who was a starter for the past couple years with San Francisco. I think he's a day one starter at the Leo position. I think he's going to replace Yannick Ngakoue. At this point, I don't see Yannick coming back with the Colts. Drake, I put out a story about him when the signing was announced. Zach Hicks did a film room about him, put it on the Horseshoe Huddle site. What do you think about Ebukam as a starter on the Colts defense?
Well, I think that it's about time. I mean, he's been in the NFL. It's deceiving because he's 28, but he's been in the NFL since 2017. So this guy's been playing since he was like 21, 22 years old. And the important thing is he's been more of a rotational guy, but he's had 4.5 sacks in each of the last 4 seasons. So I think this is a guy who's ready to go. He's finally ready to have a starting opportunity. And plus, you got to think it's great for the Colts because you have Odangbo, then you have Pay, and then you're adding more to the defensive line as well. They're definitely not shying away from adding pieces to make the pass rush as brutal as can possibly be.
Yeah, and I told you this before when the signing was made. This really reminds me. I know I saw Joel Erickson say this as well from the Indy Star. This really reminds me of the Danico Autry signing.
Oh,
When you look back at this site, or at Danico's signing in 2018 by Chris Ballard. Danico Autry, he was kind of a rotational piece on the Raiders off a defensive line. He was a guy that had some production, but just couldn't quite get there. Then he came to Indianapolis and absolutely exploded. You see, Ebukam is only 27 years old. He is a relentless pass rusher. The dude gives 100% effort on every single play. He's long. He's quick. He had one of the highest double team rates in the NFL last year, and he still had one of the top pressure rates in the NFL last year. I think putting him out at that wide 9 position, having him pin his ears back and go get the quarterback, he's going to absolutely thrive. Do I think this guy can be like a 15 to 16 sack guy? No, probably not. But I do see him probably reaching maybe 8, 9, 10 sacks, getting close to the production that Unique Ngakoue got, while also having a bigger impact on the game. And what I mean by that is more pressures, help in the run defense, not just strictly a pass rusher. So while I love Unique Ngakoue, he was a great guy in the community, and I think he was great in the locker room. I think you can get more production and more winning football out of Samson Ebukam than you could a Unique Ngakoue.
Well, and I think I got the age wrong. Maybe I meant he'll be 28 by week 1.
Yeah,
But regardless, this is an awesome signing, and plus he has the ability to be a threat in the run or on the run defensive side of things. And think about this: if he gets double teams while also still somehow making pressure happen, that opens up one-on-one situations for guys like Stewart, guys like Buckner. It changes how offenses will scheme when you have to double team an edge rusher. It seriously makes a problem for your quarterback. So I'm excited to see. In fact, I actually was I think I tweeted out on after Zach had wrote a piece that I think it was when he was doing the live stream. I said, I think he can be an 8+ sack guy next season, and Zach agreed, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him with the Colts.
Yeah, I like what Wyatt Law is saying here. When we signed Autry, we didn't have the other defensive line pieces we have now.
Yeah.
And I think that just gives Ibukam's chances of success, makes it go even higher, to be honest with you, because when you have Kwity Paye who's coming into year 3, and all you need is for Kwity Paye to stay healthy, and I think he could be close to 10 sacks a year guy. I really do. DeForest Buckner had a great year last year while basically having some kind of body part almost falling off every single week. Grover Stewart ascended. We saw Dio Dangbo come on next at the end of last season. If Tyquan Lewis can stay healthy, I think he's a solid depth piece along that defensive line. I really like that Chris Ballard has targeted defensive line early in this free agency cycle because you've seen a lot of defensive linemen go off the board fairly quickly. So you want to get these guys while they're available, and you can kind of target other groups later in free agency. But yeah, I would not be shocked at all if we have a breakout season from Samson Ebukam next year. I could very easily see, like I said, 9 to 10 sacks, and I think he could very well reach that pretty easily. But let's move it along to another defensive line signing. This one on the interior, as the Colts signed former Browns defensive tackle Taven Bryan, a former first-round pick out of the from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I did not mention Samson Ebukam's contract. It's 3 years, $27 million, with $11 million in the first year. So he didn't come cheap, averaging about $9 million a year, but honestly, that could be a steal if he starts producing those numbers and may even earn a second contract in Indianapolis. We'll have to see. But as far as Taven Bryan, it's a 1-year, $4.5 million deal to be one of the interior pass rushers. Drake, what do you think of Bryan coming on over to the Colts?
I know it wasn't the quote unquote sexiest of signings. I know that when people saw his name, they were probably like, "Who?" But here's the thing: he's incredibly athletic. He's not like the big mover type of defensive tackle. He's more of an athlete type that could probably even play some defensive end. He's going to be more of, I think, in the defensive tackle rotational role. But like we have been saying, they're building the foundational pieces. Okay. And then they're going to start to kind of plan for the draft. Who are we going to bring in, potentially on that defensive line? Because there's a bunch of ends in the draft too. But I think this is as good of an addition as it can be to the interior defensive line.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't see Taven Bryan being a guy that comes in and starts, obviously, with the two monsters that the Colts have in the middle. I fully see Taven Bryan as being a backup 3 technique. He's a guy that can come in and he's pretty good in pass rushing situations, not the best against the run. But you can, when you're watching him on film, again, high motor guy that really likes to get after the quarterback. And I think that's something that that the Colts were missing last year. Whenever DeForest Buckner came off the field, they didn't really have somebody they could stick at that 3 technique that could really rush up the middle and put pressure on the quarterback. I think Taven Bryan can do that. So again, a small move that could end up paying big dividends next fall. Just trying to make sure you have multiple pass rushers in there, so you don't see a big fall off when you have guys like DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam come off for a spell to catch their breath. You have those 8 to 9 defensive linemen that you can continue to rotate, and they'll still make an impact. You can't replace those starters out there, but you'll at least be able to still pressure the quarterback and not have guys in there that are just sitting as placeholders, if that makes sense.
Well, in last season, I mean, yes, there were some, spurts of greatness from Odangbo and Pay when he was healthy, but you kind of had Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner a little bit on islands. They were getting double teamed a lot, and there wasn't, that consistent, defensive end pass rush that you would see. I mean, yes, Ngakoue had the 9.5 sacks, but this is not dissing on Ngakoue. A lot of those came kind of like as loose sacks or right to you type of sacks, so the numbers get inflated a bit. But I think if you can get some actual pressure on the edges, guys like Bryant could actually come in and make a big impact when someone like Stewart or Buckner are trying to catch a breather.
Right, exactly. So it's all about we always want to talk about the big signings and the big starters that the Colts will get in free agency. But these moves matter too. The ones where you're getting quality depth in certain positions, they definitely matter, especially when you're getting late into the season. So now we're going to talk about the final guy that the Colts have signed outside of the organization. And it was a little bit controversial because the Colts gave him a record-breaking deal, and that's former Rams kicker Matt Gay. So the Colts gave him a 4-year, $22.5 million deal, which is the largest deal ever for a kicker in free agency. And man, I saw a lot of Colts fans not too happy about this because some people are saying, well, why couldn't we just bring back Chase McLaughlin? Why are we giving all this money to a kicker? Drake, go ahead and try to talk some of these Colts fans off the ledge as to why it was a smart move, or do you think it wasn't a smart move to pay that much to a kicker?
Look, I'm just going to make this as brief as possible. Let's go back to Rodrigo Specs Blankenship.
Whole hot rod.
Couldn't make anything, and this is nothing against the guy. Wonderful person, by the way, but couldn't make anything certainly over 50 yards. It was always a toss-up. He would miss extra points. He would miss crucial kicks. It just seemed like there was something between the ears that couldn't make it happen. In steps Chase McLaughlin, who scored literally over a third of the team's points last season. But let's say that you're in the playoffs. You have to make a game-winning kick. Would you rather have one of the top kickers in the entire NFL, and from deep, by the way, and pay him $4 or $5 million a year and have a weapon at the kicking position, or uncertainty with a guy who's bounced around the league? Look, I was all for. I even had Money McLaughlin ready as a hashtag. Okay, didn't work out, but the thing is, Matt Gay is going to give you that weapon at kicker, and you can hit pretty much anything inside of 60 yards. You always have a chance.
Absolutely. And I think this comment by Patrick is perfect. Matt Gay is the first kicker to come along since Vinatieri that is so stable, automatic, you can't pass him up. Signing him to a long deal is smart. And I don't think people get this, probably because a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to kickers that aren't on their team. Matt Gay is a top 5 kicker in the NFL.
Yeah.
The last 2 seasons, and I wrote about this, the last 2 seasons, Matt Gay is 94% on all field goals. 94%. Chase McLaughlin last year, I think, was 83 or 86%. And that's good. That is good. But there's a reason Chase McLaughlin has bounced from team to team to team to team. He's just not on the same level as Matt Gay. And Matt Gay has one of the best kicking percentages of over 50 yards than anybody in the NFL. It's up there with Justin Tucker. If we had Justin Tucker on this team, I don't think Colts fans would really be complaining about that. Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, the entire Colts team, I think, is just sick and tired of worrying about the kicker position, a position that shouldn't be a worry on this team, especially when they had Adam Vinatieri, who was automatic for so long. Bringing in Matt Gay and signing him to that long-term deal, you don't have to worry about the kicking position anymore. The kicking position is solidified. Now, yes, is there a chance that Matt Gay could go out there and kick horribly to start the year? Yes, there's a chance for all players to play bad. But when you're looking back on his history and how he's put now 3 seasons together of really, really, really solid to phenomenal kicking, you go ahead and do that. So combine the fact with how many close games the Colts lost last year. I mean, by 3 or fewer points because of a missed field goal here. There's like the week 1 tie with the Houston Texans when Hot Rod lost his job because of missing a 45-yard field goal. Think of the 33-yard field goal that Hot Rod missed in the playoff game against Buffalo. It's just, life is so much easier as a football team when you're not worrying about your kicker. So I think it's good money spent. When you look at the average, it's only about a little over $5 million a year, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much. For a guy that's going to score probably close to the most points on your team in a typical season, you want to have a guy that in that clutch time you can go send out there and he can kick a game winner. So I'm all for this signing. Yes, I think Chase McLaughlin performed admirably, but when you have the chance to sign a top 5 guy at his position, you go ahead and you make that deal.
Well, and to make it very brief, just to put it into perspective, let's say to the Colts fans that say, hey, we should have given Chase, let's say a 4-year deal. It would have been 4 years, let's say on the low end, $15 million. Are you willing to throw away $7 million or to save $7 million and have very, very high uncertainty in pressure situations? Like, we didn't really see him kick in the playoffs. We didn't really see him kick in high pressure situations a lot. And last season was his longest season on an NFL roster, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but he's been mostly like spot kicker. You bring him in for a week if another one's suspended or injured, that kind of thing. So I think it's a great signing. And like you said, who wants to worry about punter? Who wants to worry about kicker? Nobody.
Right. No, nobody does. So I think it's a good signing. And I think the Colts don't need to worry about that position. And I'm sure special teams coordinator Brian Mason is pretty happy with it as well. But let's move it along to some of the guys that are coming back with the Colts. And we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball in wide receiver Ashton Dulin. So good old Ashton Dulin is back on a 2-year, up to $9.2 million. Good player, Ashton Dulin. Not only can he be a solid depth piece at the wide receiver position, but he's an all-pro on special teams. So another get there for Brian Mason. Drake, what do you think about Ashton Dulin coming back to the Colts?
Stats can sometimes get away from people. I know that when you look at Ashton Dulin's receiving stats, you're like, oh, well, here's the thing. The guy is a big play type of dude. He will make the huge plays. That he's an athletic freak, very fast. I might be wrong on this, but I think he has 36 career tackles, and that's because of his awesome special teams ability to bullet down the field and absolutely make every single play possible. So he has a lot more value than he looks like he might have on a stat sheet, and plus he can also block pretty well. So I think you might see him get some additional snaps, especially with Campbell gone.
Yep, I like this comment by Chad. He's going to be more involved on offense and not just special teams. 100% agree there. I think that you're going to see Ashton Dulin in a much bigger role than he has been in the past. And I think he's earned that because it seems like whenever he is out there on the field, he does everything well. He's kind of this new team sack Pascal, where he'll block, he'll go out there and catch a pass. He's got speed. He's one of the fastest guys on the team. Do I think the Colts should start Ashton Dulin as their slot? Probably not. They need to upgrade. Yet. They need to upgrade and get a higher quality receiver in there. But I think you're in a good spot if Ashton Dulin is maybe your borderline 5th wide receiver on the team, and then could contribute quite a bit on special teams in numerous ways. But yeah, this definitely does not eliminate the need for the Colts to go out there and get a wide receiver. As you said, Paris Campbell did sign somewhere else today. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But the Colts, it could be even worse if Doolin was not back with this team, in my opinion.
Well, and again, I actually saw a comment about another guy I think that the Colts should sign, and that's DJ. That's DJ Shark. I really do think that DJ Shark would be a perfect addition to the team. But again, just like cornerback, there's a chance that they take two wide receivers. Okay, and like I'm not kidding. They've got additional picks now. All right, they have an additional fifth round pick. They really need to get a wide receiver potentially in free agency. Probably like we discussed with corner, it's going to be more of the veteran, cheaper end of things. But they might get two receivers in free or in the draft. They need to build depth at that position badly.
Absolutely. And one of those could be Jonathan Mingo starting in the
Yes.
slot. Jonathan Mingo,
Right.
and as Stats Matt is saying here, he seems like someone said DJ Shark today. I was texting with Stats Matt, and Stats Matt said we should get DJ Shark, and I kind of said, well, he's more of an outside receiver, but hey, I think the Colts would still take him. You could probably move Michael Pittman into the slot in some of those situations, but I'm kind of holding out for McCole Hardman myself, getting a speedy guy in there in the slot, but a man could dream. So let's move along to another guy that has mostly played special teams that could see a bigger role on defense, and that's EJ Speed. So this was one of the linebackers that we thought the Colts might not be able to retain. He might be too expensive, but he comes back on a 2-year, $8 million deal with $500,000 each year in incentives to make it go up to $9 million. Love the signing. Honestly, love that the Colts were able to get EJ Speed back. Love that they were able to get him back for so cheap. And I think he can be that solid third linebacker when the Colts are in their base and still contribute on special teams in a big way.
Well, and especially with Okereke going to the New York Giants, it's essential to get EJ Speed back. And I was so worried that I'd see the Browns nabbed him. I know that was one of the front runners, but it's a great signing. I think that kind of like with Ebukam, or Ebukam, Ebukam, they're kind of saying, all right, EJ, this is your opportunity to shine, because it's going to be Leonard, Franklin, Speed. I think that's the three. Those are the three guys right there. You got your left, your right, your middle. You've got them all right there. They're expecting him to have the volume tackling ability of Okereke, but he also is a big play machine. He can rip the ball loose. He kind of has the build of Shaq Leonard. I think he's going to actually show out. I predict at least near 100 tackles, maybe like 2 or 3 fumbles forced on the season. He's going to get some snap count.
Okay. Wyatt Law with a little bit of a hot take. Speed may actually turn out to be an upgrade over Okereke. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting to see.
That'd be great, by the way.
I know Colts fans would love to see that. But yeah, I think he can play both the linebacker positions. So if Leonard goes down or Franklin goes down, you can have EJ Speed come up and fill in admirably. As Matt says right here, Speed is a linebacker version of Dio O'Day, a hurricane. So and as Nick says here, or Nico, excuse me, he is a great special teamer as well. So it's gonna be interesting. Unboxing Mania asks, what's going on with the Giants going after the Colts free agents? Well, I saw Shad say today that the Colts signed all the Giants coaches, so the Giants are now signing all the Colts players. So
yep.
But yeah, I mean that makes 2 Colts that are going over to the Giants in Okereke and Paris Campbell. But yeah, glad to have EJ Speed back. We know what he brings to the table, and I think he's just going to continue to get better. And then the last guy that the Colts brought back was cornerback Tony Brown. And honestly, this could be underrated because, like we said, the Colts need cornerbacks right now. Tony Brown has not been a guy that's played much on the defensive side of the ball, but again, core special teams guy, another guy that Brian Mason is getting back, and he can. I think last year we saw him mostly fill in the slot at times for Kenny Moore. Not sure if he's really a guy that can go outside. We have yet to see that. But again, more depth. These depth pieces do matter. You can't just go sign all the big names for all the big money. You do need to continue to add those depth pieces with solid guys. And I think Tony Brown is exactly that. He's not going to be a star player in this league. He's probably not going to be able to go toe to toe with the best wide receivers in the game. But hey, he's going to give you depth at a crucial spot, and he's going to play really well on special teams for you.
Well, and like you said, if you can get the right depth pieces, you can start to build those higher end targets that you're trying to find. You can draft who you want to kind of be the leaders, even though they're younger. And plus, like you said, he's the big play. He's like it was a weird phrase that I came up with looking at it now, but it's an underrated big play waiting to happen kind of guy. He just has an ability, especially on special teams, to make cool things happen. And Isaiah Rodgers, okay, got his start on special teams. So I'm telling you, people get their start on special teams. So I think that Tony Brown might be given a little bit more faith. Who knows if he can show in training camp and show in the offseason, that he could play some slot corner. Maybe he gets some snaps on in addition to his special teams opportunities.
Very well could be, but and that rounds it out for all the signings, all the moves that the Colts have made. Who would have thought that? Okay, before we move on, I'm going to go through the list real quick. So we talked about Gilmore, Ryan, Minshew, Ebukam, Brian, Gay, Doolin, Speed, Brown. 9 players that have been involved in moves by the Indianapolis Colts.
What is it, 2 days?
2 days. The legal tampering period started on Monday. So if you want to technically call it 4 days, sure, doesn't really matter. 2 official days of free agency. Ballard and the Colts have been active. So I don't want to see anybody saying that the Colts haven't been active. They've been sitting on their hands. It's been a very active free agency to start. Maybe you don't agree with all the moves, but hey, you can't say that they haven't been active. So we'll have to see. Again, you can't win anything in March, but you can certainly set a foundation for your team. And overall, I like what the Colts have done so far.
Oh yeah, I kid. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at all the activity, and there's nothing that like jumps off the page like, whoa, holy cow! But it might pay dividend in the near future with guys like Ebukam, with guys like Doolin, with guys like Speed. I think that those 3 guys in particular are going to get bump ups in their roles, and the Colts are looking at them like, look, on your former team you were rotational, this, that. Obviously the Colts are getting back Doolin and Speed, but they're elevating, I think, the importance they're putting on those guys.
Right. Can't make everyone happy, says Chad. He's 100% right. Stats, Matt, as well. We'll answer this question real quick. Sarah says, why not Kenny Golladay? I think Kenny Golladay is going to be too expensive and not exactly what the Colts are looking for. They're looking for probably someone that can play in the slot. Kenny Golladay plays outside. Statsman asks, can we make it an hour? No, we've only got one more thing to talk about tonight. And so that kind of moves us on to the latest Colts news and rumors. There's just one little bit of news that we haven't covered yet, and that's Paris Campbell. So Paris Campbell today did sign a 1-year, $3 million deal that can be worth up to $7 million with the New York Giants. I know a lot of people we're not happy about this, saying that why didn't the Colts bring back Campbell, especially for that price? And I think there could be a lot of different factors involved. But Drake, what do you think about this? Do you think the Colts should have made a bigger attempt to retain Campbell? How do you feel about Campbell going to the Giants?
Let's say that he had one bad year with his health and it was his rookie year and he played a full couple more seasons and just now hit his stride. I think that you see him in a Colts uniform. I just think that it's a business. Look, it really is. And I think that his injuries, yes, he had his first full season, but I think that the injury worries still scare the Colts because for the first 3, he was not on the field at all. So I also think that he can be replaced. I do think that there can be a free agent signing that can replace him, and maybe they just didn't want to fork over that kind of money because of the health scares. I'm telling you, the health had to have been a big reason, and it also couldn't have been easy for Ballard or Irsay to say, okay, you know what, go ahead. All right, go ahead and be a Giant. Like that had to be hard, but it's a business, and I think that the health, the past with his health has been huge.
Right. I think part of this is probably Paris Campbell went out and didn't see the market that he was expecting, because a lot of that's probably because of health, because he's only had one healthy season in his 4 years in the NFL. Granted, he never got injured in high school or college, but it's the NFL's what have you done for me lately? In one full season, you're not going to give somebody a big contract off of that. So yeah, I think one of the reasons was that. I think another reason was possibly the Colts quarterback situation. You don't know what that quarterback situation is going to be when there's going to be a rookie coming in. At least the Giants, you know that they're going to have Daniel Jones there, and since it's really his contract is really incentive laden. He's betting on himself. He wants to go where he knows where the quarterback is going to be, try to prove himself on that 1-year deal, and then try to sign a bigger deal that next year. So I think a lot of things went into it as far as why they didn't bring it back. And lastly, and this was a point that Zach Hicks brought up today, you don't know. I mean, Shane Steichen has a lot of input right now as far as what players are being kept, what players they want to go target to fit his offense and what he envisions this offense being. I know he has said he wants his offense he always shapes his offense to fit the players, but at the same time, you still have a vision for your offense. So maybe Paris Campbell doesn't fit that. Maybe he has other players in mind. Could be in the draft, could be in free agency. We'll have to see. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, maybe they bring in somebody that's worse, and maybe Paris Campbell goes off next year. But at the same time, it takes two to tango. The team has to want the player, and the player has to want to come back. And somewhere along the line, that didn't line up. So we'll have to see what happens with Paris Campbell. Wish him all the best, because that Paris Campbell is a great guy. But I don't think, for Colts fans, I don't think it's the end of the world that Paris Campbell isn't coming back. It's not like the Colts are letting prime Reggie Wayne go in the middle of his height in the NFL. Paris Campbell so far has proven he's an average wide receiver with some injury concerns. And so it's not the end of the world that Paris Campbell's gone. You can find other guys still in free agency, and there's the NFL draft where the Colts could find somebody just as good as Paris Campbell.
Well, and you and I were at the combine, and it's the combine, but we saw some pretty impressive wide receivers that could be diamonds in the rough. And like you said, you can sign another slot wide receiver. Now for Paris, that's a wide receiver core in New York for the Giants that needed his help. So maybe he goes off next season. Best of luck to him. He's got a highly paid quarterback who's ready to show why he was paid that much in Daniel Jones.
Ian says McCole Hardman. Ian, you're thinking like I am. I would love McCole Hardman in the slot there.
That'd be a great addition
for the Indianapolis Colts. Looks like Sarah is on that train as well. But that is it for tonight's episode. Thank you guys so much. We covered a lot, so I hope you guys are able to kind of digest that. But special shout out to Landon, Stats Matt, Courtney, Sarah, Ian, Unboxing Mania, Wyatt Law, Paul, Nomadic Brian, Chad, all of you guys that participated in the chat today. Nico, you guys always make it so special and so much fun. So if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and follow us on social media and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow Horseshoe Huddle on Twitter at Colts on FN. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Shad and Destin are going live. They had a great episode last night talking to Jalen Wayne, the nephew of Reggie Wayne, who is a draft prospect out of South Alabama. So definitely go ahead and check that out. But before we get out of here, Drake, we've been writing like crazy on the site on horseshoehuddle.com. What are some of the things that you've got out there on the site that the people need to go check out?
Well, I wanted to mention I wrote a Minshew piece, and things are happening so fast that it beat me to the news. So, what could the Colts be watching for Keely Ringo, because they did go and visit him at his pro day, and what the Stefan Gilmore trade means for Indianapolis, and those two could potentially be intertwined.
Awesome stuff. I've got a lot of pieces out detailing multiple sightings by the Colts. We're talking Gardner Minshew, Matt Gay, Samson Ebukam, Taven Bryan, all guys, wrote pieces on them. Also have my big piece the Colts are currently thinking at the quarterback position. So you'll definitely want to go check that out. Fantastic stuff. All on Horseshoe Huddle by Drake and the rest of the guys, Jake, Zach, Destin, Shad, all of them. It's just been so much fun at Horseshoe Huddle. So guys, definitely go check that out. Go follow Drake at DWalster Drake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we will be back Monday night to talk more Colts football with you, free agency, trades, whatever's happening over this weekend. We'll catch you back up. But until then, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy St. Patty's Day if you celebrate. If you don't, enjoy March Madness if you're watching it. But we will see you guys Monday night. Have a good one.